Good morning, students. This video is going to explain about the network and cyber security. Module 1. We are going to discuss about the web security consideration, web security threats, web security approaches in this particular video. If you're going to see about that, virtually all businesses, most of the government agencies and many individuals now have websites. The number of individuals and companies with internet access is expanding rapidly, and all of this have graphical web browsers. As a result, businesses are enthusiastic about setting up facilities on the web for electronic commerce. But the reality is that the internet and the web are extremely vulnerable to compromise of various sorts. As businesses wake up to this reality, the demand for secure web services grows. So, the topic of web security is a broad one and easily can understand. So, in this chapter, we are going to discuss about the general requirements for web security and then focuses on three standard schemes that are becoming increasingly important as a part of a web commerce, and that focuses on security at the transport layer in the form of SSL, TSL, HTTPS and SSH. So let's we discuss before entering into this particular module, we discuss about the learning objectives of this particular module. So after studying this chapter, we should be able to understand the web security threats and web traffic security approaches. And we should remember an overview of secured socket layer SSL. And we must understand the difference between secured socket layer and transport layer security. And we need to apply a pseudo-random function in the transport layer security for maintaining the security in the web services. And we need to present an overview of HTTPS over SSL and an overview of secured shell in the particular web security. Let me discuss about the first topic, web security consideration. What actually the web security consideration? The World Wide Web is fundamentally a client-server application running over the internet and TCP/IP intranets. As such, the security tools and approaches discussed are relevant to the issues of web security. However, the following characteristics of web usage suggest the need for tailored security tools. Although web servers are very easy to use, web servers are relatively easy to configure and manage. The web content is increasingly easy to develop. The underlying software is extraordinarily complex. So this complex software may hide many potential security flaws. So the short history of the web is filled with a few examples and a new upgraded paradigm systems properly installed that are vulnerable to a variety of security attacks. So in generally, a web server can be exploited as a launching pad into the corporations or agencies' entire computer complex. Once the web security is subverted, an attack may be able to gain access to data and system, not part of the web itself, but connected to the server at the local site. Casually and untrained, for example, insecurity matters, which users are common clients for web-based services. So such users are not necessarily aware of the security risks that exist and do not have the tool or knowledge to take effective countermeasures. This is the web security consideration. So when we're going to move to the web security threats, the types of security threats faced when we use the web are going to be discussed over here. So here, the type of security threats faced when using the web, one way to group these threats is in terms of passive and active attacks. A passive attack, which is going to include an eavesdropping on network traffic between browser and server and gaining access to information on a website that is supposed to be restricted. Active attacks include impersonating another user, alternating messages in transit between client and server, and alternating information on a website. Another way to classify the web security threats is in terms of the location of the threat. A web server, a web browser, and network traffic between a browser and server. The issues of server and browser security falls into the category of computer system security. That issue of the system security in generally, but it's also applicable to web system security. Issue of the security threats or security flaws into the category of network security and are going to be addressed in the next slide. So if you're going to see about this tabular column which have been shown over there, which is going to be having main three important things, that is the threat, consequences, and countermeasures. We are going to see about a comparison of the threat on the web. Integrity, if you're going to see about this integrity, which is going to be for create a threat of modification of user data, Tarzan horse browser, modification of memory, modification of a message traffic in transit. What will be the consequences which is going to get arise due to the threat which is going to be part of the integrity? So the consequences are going to be loss of information. The information may be get lost from the server to client. And compromise of mission, we can't able to stick onto that, we have to go for a compromise of mission, and based on the mission or based on the computer system it may be varies, and vulnerability to other threats. So these are the consequences because of the threat in the integrity we can come across this one. So what will be the countermeasure to overcome this particular consequences? We need to go for a cryptographic system, or we need to go for a checksum. So by using the cryptographic system and the checksums, we can overcome this particular threats and the consequences of the integrity. So coming to the next one, confidentiality. What are the threats which is going to be there in confidentiality? I was dropping on the net, theft of information from server, theft of data from client, information about network configuration, information about which client talks to server. So these are the threats which is going to be there involving in the confidentiality. What will be the consequences when we are going to come across this kind of threats in the confidentiality? Obviously, loss of information is going to be the main thing, and important one is nothing but loss of privacy. The privacy is going to be disturbed over there. We can't able to get the privacy of this particular information which is going to be transferred from the server to client or client to server. How we can overcome this loss of privacy and loss of information based on the confidentiality? We can come across with this countermeasures. So by using an cryptographic system, that's nothing but encryption process. So by using encryption process, the information can be get a loss of information can be get avoided, and by using a web proxies, we can overcome the loss of privacy. Such a way we can overcome this particular threat and consequences for this particular confidentiality. So the third one, if you're going to see about that, denial of service. The service which is going to be requested by the client may be get denied from the server. Such thing is going to get happen. So how it's going to create? What kind of threats are going to be there in this particular denial of service? It's going to killing of user threat. The threat is going to be get killed over there, and flooding machine with the bugs request. So the request is going to be get flooded by the machine, so that the denial of service is going to be happen over there. Or else filling up a disk or a memory full. So it's going to show that the disk is going to be full, so that the server can't able to load the information requested by the client to the client machine. So such a way it's going to create the denial of service. And some other way it's going to isolate the machine by a DNS attack. So straight away it's going to attack the DNS, and it's going to make the machine is going to be away from the particular connection. So it's going to isolate the machine by the DNS attack. So these are the threats which is going to be involved in the denial of service. So what will be the consequences when we are going to have such a threat in the denial of service? So it's going to make a annoying, so that we can't able to get the information. It's going to be disruptive and annoying is going to be present over there, and it's going to prevent user from getting work done. So the work which is going to be requested by the client will not be get fulfilled by the server or vice versa. Such a way it's going to provide a denial of service. This is the consequences which is going to get occurred across this particular denial of service. In what way we can come or overcome this particular denial of service? So a countermeasure is nothing but it's very difficult to prevent, since we can't able to come to know where the actual annoying is going to be get happen, or where the system is going to be get corrupted, or it's going to be get disturb. So it's so difficult to prevent the particular denial of service. There's a problem in this particular threat. The last one, authentication. What kind of threat which is going to be there in this authentication? So impersonation of a legitimate user. So it's going to make the authorized user as unauthorized, and sometime what happened, data is going to be get forged. So obviously the data which is going to be get requested by the client from the server will not be appropriate. It's going to be get forged. So due to that, the consequences, a misrepresentation of the user is going to be shown over there to the client, to the server, so that the client will not be get recognized by the server appropriately, so that the information may not be appropriate, the information may not be get fulfilled by the server to the client, and believe that the false information is going to get valid. If data is going to get forged, obviously what happened, the client may think that the information which have been shared by the server is going to be a valid one, but actually that information is going to be a false information. How to overcome this authentication process? By using the countermeasure. So here we can use a cryptographic techniques. So by using the cryptographic techniques, we can overcome this particular authentication problem, and we can authenticate the appropriate user to the server, client to the server, so that the data forge or impersonation of this legitimate users will be get overcome that. So with the help of this cryptographic techniques, we can overcome this particular authentication problem. Coming to the next one, web security approaches. As already we have discussed about that, the three important approaches what we are going to discuss in this particular web considerations are to the use of IP security. It's going to be at the network level, and implementation just above the TCP, and application level. These are the three approaches which are going to be present over there. Let me discuss about this. A number of approaches to providing a web security are possible. The various approaches that have been considered are similar in the service they provide, and to some extent in the mechanism that may use, but they differ with respect to their scope of applicability and their relative location within the TCP/IP protocol stack. So if you're going to see about this particular diagram, the web security approaches network level. So here one way to provide the web security is to use IP security. That the advantages of using this IP security is that it is transparent to the end user and applications and provides a general purpose solution. Furthermore, the IP security includes a filtering capability so that only selected traffic need incur the overhead of IP security processing. Another approach, if you're going to see about that, this is the second one, transport level. So another relatively general purpose solution is to implement the security just above the TCP. The foremost example of this approach is the Secure Socket Layer, SSL, and the follow-on internet standard, which is going to be known as TLS, Transport Layer Security, TLS. At this level, what happened? There are two implementation choices. For full generalizity, SSL or TSL could be provided as part of the underlying protocol suite and therefore be transparent to applications. Alternatively, the SSL can be embedded in specific packages. For example, Netscape and Microsoft Explorer browsers come equipped with SSL, and most web servers have implemented this protocol. The third one, which is going to be called as application level. The application specific security services are embedded within the particular application. So this architecture, which has an advantage of this approach, is that service can be tailored to the specific need of a given application. Example, a secure electronic transaction, SET. So this SET, which is going to provide a secured transaction from one end to another end. For example, which have been used in the ATM centers, banking purpose, and the merchant seller and buyer transactions. There we can use this secure electronic transaction.